Welcome to the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video, where better sleep starts with better understanding.
All right, welcome to the explainer. So we've all heard of sleeping pills, right? But what about all those other drugs that just happen to make you drowsy? Today, we're going to break down the science behind what you might call accidental sleeping pills. You know, the meds for things like allergies or depression that, as it turns out, are used all the time to treat insomnia.
So let's start with something I bet almost everyone has felt. You pop an over-the-counter antihistamine for a runny nose, and boom, an hour later you are just fighting to keep your eyes open. Well, that powerful side effect, it's not really an accident. It's actually a huge clue to how our brain controls being awake in the first place.
And along the same lines, it might sound kind of weird for a doctor to give you an antidepressant when your problem is just you can't sleep. But this happens all the time. It's incredibly common, and believe it or not, it relies on the very same mechanism as that drowsy allergy pill.
So this is the big puzzle we're going to solve today. It's a really fascinating story about how these, unintended side effects, well, they became the main feature. And it's about how our growing understanding of the brain has led to this whole class of accidental sleep aids. Okay, so let's dive right in. To really get a handle on how these drugs work, we first have to understand this biological tug-of-war that's constantly happening inside your brain, the one that decides whether it's time to be alert or time to hit the pillow.
So, first things first, why do we even need these accidental sleeping pills? Well, for decades, the main frontline treatments for insomnia have, frankly, come with some pretty significant downsides.
For years, the go-to treatments have been drugs like zolpidem. You probably know it as Ambien. They're part of a class called benzodiazepine receptor agonists, or BZRAs for short. And yeah, they can work, but they also come with this whole list of concerns. Things like rebound insomnia, tolerance, dependence. This is what's pushed doctors and patients to start looking for other options.
So, to really understand those alternatives, we first need to take a peek under the hood and look at the basic system they all interact with. And it's actually a beautiful piece of neural engineering.
You might think that getting sleepy is just a matter of your brain running out of batteries. But it is not that simple at all. Sleep is an active process, and it's controlled by this constant push and pull between different systems in your brain. It really is a biological tug-of-war.
So the best way to think about it is like there are two teams in your brain. You've got the wake team with heavy hitters like histamine and orexin. They're constantly sending out signals that say, stay alert, stay awake. Then on the other side, you've got the sleep team, which uses signals like GABA to quiet everything down. Your state of consciousness, it just depends on which team has the upper hand at any given moment.
Now this is where we meet the referee in this whole match. There's a specific spot in your hypothalamus called the VLPO, and it acts like a master sleep switch. When it's time to sleep, the VLPO gets to work, actively sending out signals to shut down that wake team.
And that is what brings us to these drugs, the ones that were never designed for sleep but are used for it all the time. This is where pharmacology gets really creative.
The official name for this is off-label use. And yeah, it's totally legal and very, very common. It just means a doctor is prescribing a drug for a purpose that isn't its main FDA-approved one. But here's the catch. It often means the drug hasn't gone through those huge, rigorous clinical trials for that new purpose.
And to show you just how widespread this is, get this. The data shows that the antidepressant trazodone is the second most prescribed drug for insomnia in the US. It's right behind zolpidem, the drug that was actually designed from the ground up to be a sleeping pill. So what's the big deal? Well, the crucial point is that even though these drugs are used constantly, there's often a big gap in our knowledge. Because they weren't formally studied for insomnia, we often don't have that high-quality data on how well they work for sleep, or what the best dose is, or what all the long-term side effects might be when you use them this way.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do these different drugs actually manage to hack that sleep-wake switch we were just talking about? Here it is. This is the big connection. Remember histamine, one of the star players on the wake team? Well, it turns out many of these sedating drugs, both the antidepressants and the allergy pills, work by blocking a specific histamine receptor. They essentially just silence one of the brain's most important stay-awake signals, and that is why they make you feel so drowsy.
And this table just lays it all out, plain and simple. You can see that antidepressants like doxepin and mirtazapine have a really powerful antihistamine effect. In fact, doxepin is such a potent histamine blocker at low doses that it actually got FDA approval specifically for insomnia. It's kind of the one official crossover drug in this whole group.
Now you might be wondering, what about melatonin? Well, it plays a totally different role. It doesn't really suit up for the sleep team or the wake team directly. Instead, think of melatonin as the official timekeeper. It regulates your body's internal clock, sending out a signal that says, hey, nighttime has arrived. It is now the appropriate time to go to sleep. Its direct sleep-inducing power is actually pretty modest.
So, armed with all this new knowledge about the sleep switch, researchers started thinking, hey, maybe we can do better. Maybe we can design a much smarter sleeping pill.
The new strategy is way more precise, almost like a surgical strike. Instead of broadly hitting a bunch of systems like the older antidepressants did, which can cause a lot of side effects, the idea was to find one single crucial member of the wake team and target only that. Researchers pinpointed another key wakefulness promoter, orexin, and developed a drug that does one thing and one thing only. It blocks the orexin signal.
And this represents a total game changer in strategy. See, older drugs, like the BSRAs, basically force you into sedation by cranking up the volume on the sleep team. These newer drugs, they take a much more subtle approach. They just turn down the volume on the wake team signals, which then allows your brain's own natural sleep processes to take over.
So after all that pharmacology, what is the key lesson? What's the main takeaway from all this?
Well, the bottom line from the experts is that off-label doesn't automatically mean safer or better. While these drugs can be really useful alternatives, they absolutely come with their own set of trade-offs and unknowns that you need to be aware of.
So if you remember anything from this, remember this. Just because a pill makes you drowsy doesn't automatically mean it's a good sleeping pill. That drowsiness is a side effect of it messing with your brain's wake team, and understanding how it works and what else it might be affecting in the process is what truly matters.
And this is the fascinating question that's driving the whole future of sleep medicine. Is the perfect pill one that just silences the noise of being awake, or is it one that helps the brain transition more naturally into a good night's rest? It really makes you think more deeply about what it means to fall and stay asleep.
Thank you for watching the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video. We hope you sleep well and dream easy.